Okay. Well, most of you, I think. Okay, so I think we have some good examples here of different kinds of thesis statements. So I'm gonna pull up the whiteboard. We're gonna workshop a couple of these. Let's see. Let's do, we'll see lots of good ones now. I have to go back and find them. Okay, let's start with Tejas. All right, this is Tejas' thesis statement. Ownership helps to develop the moral character of oneself because it provides tangible proof of one's self-perception. So everyone in the chat box now, write one thing that this thesis statement does well, according to the things we've been talking about with thesis statements. Yeah, good. I'm agreeing with all of you guys. It's very specific. It isn't like kind of, it's not vague in the way that it's going to kind of burst out of control in the argument. And it has a very clear reasoning to it, very clear relationship between ownership and self-perception. And part of that is because of that word because, or some of you were using the word since to show that relationship between the claim and the reason, right? Okay, cool. I want you to tell me one thing that this thesis statement could do better. Everybody's writing something that the thesis could do better. All right, good. Yeah, so some of the thesis statements you guys had were talking about how ownership would need to be defined. And Taya could have done that earlier in the paragraph. She could have said, here's what I mean by ownership, both tangible and intangible. But here when she says tangible proof of one's self-perception, I think she's talking about material ownership. And so it could be a lot clearer if she clarified that right at the beginning. There's one other thing. Yeah, when Rachel says, maybe reword it so you aren't saying oneself twice. What if you just said, ownership helps develop moral character because it provides tangible proof of oneself, of one's self-perception. I think it becomes a little bit more streamlined that way. So even if you were to say like material ownership, you get to a little bit more room to play with it, but strong thesis statement. Let's look at another one. Simon had one I wanted to look at. All right. Okay, this is Simon's thesis statement. Ownership helps to develop the moral character of oneself because it provides tangible proof of one's, oh, that's the same one. I was like, that sounds familiar. There we go. The way people perceive ownership shapes the way they view themselves because they see what they associate themselves with and define themselves with it. Okay, tell me what's strong about this thesis statement. Maybe something different that's strong about it than what was strong about Taya's. We're looking at this one now, just so you guys know. right, the way people perceive ownership shapes the way they view themselves because they see what they associate themselves with and define themselves with it. What I'm really liking about it too, you guys are pointing out how it defines ownership and defines this idea of moral character. So Sarah pointed that out, which is, I think, true. That's what I like it too. But I think what I like about it is that this takes a slightly different angle to what the kind of typical thesis statement was that I saw. Like, it's not saying that ownership is one thing or is another thing. It's saying the way people perceive ownership. So it's almost taking this more like distance approach and saying, well, you know, there are different ways to view ownership. I'm not going to take a stand on what the right way is. I'm going to say that it's the way that people perceive it that changes how they define themselves, which I think is a really interesting angle. Tell me one thing this thesis statement could improve. Yeah, you guys got it. It's a little bit wordy. I think that in the time crunch, it's a great one. If you were writing in a time situation, that's not the worst thing to be. But if you were to refine it, you might cut out some of these words. Like, it's repeating themselves a couple times. And themselves is already kind of a clunky word. So there's a way to kind of say, because they can see how they define them, like they can see how objects define themselves or something like that. Lexi says not every person views themselves and their worth based on ownership of things, but I think what works about this thesis statement is that it is the way people perceive ownership. So maybe it's something about how it's not just about things, it's about their accomplishments or about their experiences or so on. So I think it works. Okay, one more we're gonna look at. Erase. Okay, and hopefully this works. I think this is Ben's. Owning your experiences and abilities shapes who you are as a person more than your tangible things do. Okay, tell me what works about this thesis statement. What is good about it? Very clear claim. Yeah, you're right, Noble. Yeah, whereas Simon's was strong because he took this distance and it's going to be this philosophical argument. This one might be a little bit easier to think of examples for. We're going to talk about examples a lot today. And so because he can kind of compare when people own things, tangible things, and then when people own their experiences and abilities, it's going to make for like a really really direct argument. Yeah, you guys are right. All right, now what needs to be improved about this thesis statement? Yeah, Ali Rose, I think, is right. That do kind of sits there at the end. Grammatically, it sounds improper, but also part of it is because it's missing something. This thesis is missing something. Yeah, Skyly got it. It needs to have that reason to it, right? Why is this the case? Why does owning experience shape you more than tangible things? Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you guys got it. Okay, so I am going to stop the share now. And it could have been put into counter argument form. Oh yeah, Maxwell, didn't yours was in counter argument. I wanted to look at one of those. Yes, okay, I'm gonna put this up. Sorry, Maxwell. You almost got out of this. Okay. Even though ownership can lead to greediness, ownership can develop your moral character by creating life-changing experiences. What really works about this one then, please no, sorry. What really works about this one is that counter argument style of thesis, because you have this part of the counter argument, greediness, you have it can develop moral character, and then the way that it can develop moral character is by creating life-changing experiences. So it is good, it's really direct. So this kind of has has the claim and the reason without being clunky, without being wordy. So good job. All right. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to send you into breakout rooms. Like I said, I know how we feel about breakout rooms, but whatever, get over it. I'm going to send you into breakout rooms. And as a little group, you're going to decide out of your group members what thesis you should use for this assignment. So maybe that means that someone in your group has an awesome one and you guys all agree that's the thesis you want to work with. Or maybe everyone in your group could improve on the thesis a little bit and you want to write one together. However you want to do it. I'm going to give you, let's do 4 minutes. I'm going to give you 4 minutes in these groups to, as a group together, come up with a thesis statement, and make sure you have your group's thesis statement written down, because once I get out of the breakout rooms, whatever was there goes away. So let me make these. I don't know how many I want yet. Oh, they're beautiful. Okay, I'm going to send you into these rooms. Decide on your thesis. You'll be using it later, so you need to have one. Hey, Savannah, were you not able to make it into that room?
Did something happen or?
No, we're just waiting for everybody to come back now.
I see.
It gives them a minute to get back.
I must have accidentally pushed the comeback button because I was talking to my group and suddenly I was transported.
Did you get the thesis written down though? Okay. Ripped out of their breakout rooms in 5 seconds. Okay, we're gonna get back to that in a second. We're doing something with that thesis statement, but let's talk about Gatsby for a minute. So you've got your Gatsby books with you, right? Somewhere near you? Grab them if you got them. Okay, awesome, good job. Why do you hate Nick? Wait, now I want to hear.
Because he's like, throughout the past chapters that we've read, he's like, oh, I'm very honest. I am like so much better than everyone. When like in reality, everyone around him is so much better than him. Like he judges his cousins so harshly when he's a loser and she's not.
Oh, interesting. Wait, so you think that Daisy is like not a loser, but Nick is?
No, because he like Baker, whatever her name was, Jordan Baker, she says that like Daisy was like the heart of like the party. She was like the prettiest, she was like the best. And as she got older and as she got married, she like started to move with like the more mature crowd, and society would always follow her. And because she married Tom, that's why they found him like cheating on her and like like the newspaper thing, because she's so popular. But Nick doesn't have anything like that to his name. So
right. He kind of seems to be just this sort of like third wheel no matter where he goes, and yet he's still like judging everybody else for the social connections that they are making. That's a good point. I think like Daisy, for most people, doesn't come across so well. Maybe stop talking about Spider-Man. He doesn't come across so well, partly, or she doesn't come across so well, partly because what we see happening at the end of this reading that we read, like, I don't know, maybe not so much yet, but in some ways Daisy seems a little bit like phony to some people. Yeah, okay, you say she's dim, but she's not inhuman. I like that. Like maybe she's like a little bit of a gold digger is how she comes across here, right?
Wait,
like,
can I say something about Daisy?
Yeah.
One of my favorite things about Daisy is it's all like because I've read this book before, but the further you read into the book, the more you realize everything is on purpose. Like Daisy is a very intelligent woman that acts as if she isn't, because the society that she's in says that women can't progress the way that, like they're defined by their husbands. So the way that we're all saying like, oh, she seems like an object, she's an airhead, she's doing that on purpose. And what she says later on in the book is the best thing she can hope for her daughter is to be born an idiot, so that like she can just conform to society. And so like Daisy represents the idea of being like set apart as like an object on, like she does it on purpose. And so she wants to be the perfect woman for Tom and like for this era, and to her that's being like nodding and having no character traits whatsoever. But as we get to know her the way that Gatsby does, we see like, oh, she's a real person, and she's not perfect. Like she still has a lot of flaws because she is very idealistic about like money and stuff, but she tries to be like a good person, like once you get past the steps of like she's hiding who she is.
Yeah, and even in that part where she talks about how she wants her daughter to be a little fool because that's the best thing a girl can be, she's still like, at least Nick thinks she's still being calculating in that little section. Like she's still thinking, okay, I am going to perform this kind of action because I know sort of what a woman in the 1920s should be. So women in this isn't necessarily the direction I was going to go with this, but women in the 1920s were kind of in this weird spot where you have this flapper girl type persona emerging. Have you guys seen pictures of the flapper girl? The short haircut, she smoked cigarettes, which was not necessarily you know, common for women to do before that. They went from being like the ideal of womanhood at the turn of the century was kind of like curvy and motherly even. And then they went to being like they were supposed to be just like kind of boyish, like, you know, really, really thin. And so it was like this sort of way of like not being completely feminine anymore. And that's why they cut their hair short. That's why they could smoke cigarettes. That's why they could drink in public and so on. But at the same time, they were still meant to be kind of like subservient. And so it's like, how much can I, for Daisy, how much can I act out? And how much do I need to conform into like what a woman should be? So she's at this strange like little spot. So she's watching her husband cheat on her, but she doesn't have to just stay silent and accept that. She can speak out against it, but not so much that she loses her husband, because that's where her source of income comes through. Okay, but I want to get back on track with this prompt that we're talking about. And I think it does relate, but I want to think about ownership in this book. We didn't get a chance to talk about the party scene all that much. So go to page 40 of your book when it is describing what Gatsby's party looks like. Oh, Lexi's point, I think, is really important here. Yeah, she's like, if that's what you think I am, that's what I'm going to be, because that's where I can find any power that I have, is by acting the way you think I'm supposed to act. Okay, so Gatsby's party on page 40. Well, it kind of starts on 39, and then we see everything that is at this party. And I think in this chapter, it kind of details all of the things that Gatsby owns. So let's think of these tangible things that it talks about him owning. Like one thing it talks about him owning is an orange juice presser. And he just gets hundreds of oranges and lemons shipped to him, and he can press them in this little machine. And I love that it talks about how it's automatic, except for the butler has to sit there pressing it 200 times a day, you know. Make a list in the chat box of all the other things we see Gatsby owning at this party. Gatsby is owning this party. Yeah, that's true. Okay, so he has an orchestra. Yeah. Okay, so he has some sort of ownership over the people that are there, some sort of loyalty to them. Literally anyone. Yeah, in that scene where it just lists like all of the different people that came to the parties. He has a library, he has cars, he has a bar, he has a garden, he has lots of liquor, illegal at the time, but he doesn't seem to mind. He owns the mafia. Yeah, I think we get that in the next chapters, but yeah. Yes, he has access to the beach. He has motorboats, he has a hydroplane, he has chauffeurs, he has a butler, he has tons of food. Yeah, he might own Nick at this point. I mean, Nick loves him. He has this giant house. All right, awesome. So you guys talked about how judgmental Nick is, and you were talking about how judgmental he is towards Daisy, right? Listing all of these things that Gatsby owns, and you guys just said a ton of them. Like, how does that show Nick's potential judgment of Gatsby? In what way is Nick judging Gatsby in this party scene? So what I want you to do is find a quote in this party scene, somewhere between 39 and, well, just in this chapter. What is it? Chapter 3. And find where you think he is judging Gatsby's ownership of physical things. Either way, negatively or positively. Moths Among the Whisperings. Allie Rose, will you put the page number of that? Oh, that they came and went like moths. Oh yeah, it's like the second sentence. All right, everybody, once you find your quote, pick out the phrase that you think is the most important in that quote and write it in the chat box with the page number. A lot of you guys are pointing out like how uncomfortable Nick feels at this party. I was actually invited. These people are coming whether they are welcome or not. This is an unusual party for me. He's taking this outsider stance. Why do you think he does that? And you guys, if you want to raise your hand, like I can physically see you, or you can write it into the chat box, however you want to do it. Why do you think Nick insists that he's an outsider at this party? What does that tell us about how he sees himself compared to Gatsby? Maxwell?
He's kind of like, it's kind of a way of like saying he's better than them. Like he kind of almost views them as greedy or like material oriented, I guess. And so like him being different from them is him being better than them, and like not being boastful about what he owns and stuff like that, and being more modest.
Yeah, okay, good. So he's like, I live in the small house and I go over here and I'm so out of place in all of this gaudy, he even uses the word gaudy materialism, right? And because these other people seem to be enjoying themselves, I really need to set myself apart from them. I didn't come because I wanted to. I came because I was invited. But at the same time, that gives him this special privilege, like Gatsby singled me out, you know? Okay, we'll go Lexi and then to Abby.
Okay, so first of all, I don't necessarily have a problem with Nick. I mean, he's not the best character ever, but I mean, I don't think he's awful. But so when I say this next part, I don't mean it like unkindly, but I'm wondering if he's just kind of one of those people who says a bunch of negative stuff for attention almost. So kind of like one of those people who, I don't know, for example, doesn't get invited to like a gathering, and they go around and make sure everybody knows about it. Like, oh, you were invited? Well, I wasn't because I'm just so awful and stuff like that. And almost, I think the more common term is a pick-me person. And I feel like he's just kind of like, yeah, I don't belong here. I'm just like, you know, I'm just here. I shouldn't be here though. And so almost kind of searching for validation. And so I don't know for sure, but it feels like the kind of vibe I'm getting from him is, because I had a friend exactly like this who would be like, no, I'm so out of place. You're all so much better than me. And they ended up having like an attention problem and they needed attention and validation. And so I'm wondering if it's something like that, where he just almost kind of wants people to be like, no, like, Nick, you're fine. You belong here with us, or I don't know. That was kind of my thoughts on it.
Interesting. I mean, I think that he sees the people at the party in such a negative way that he's not saying, okay, I don't want to belong to this party, but I wish I did. And yet I still get what you mean by attention seeking, because he wants to tell
it's nice to be
everybody at that
included.
party. What'd you say?
It's nice to be included. He doesn't want to be a part of that party, but like it's also nice to be included, know that he's there. So I feel like it'd be kind of one of those things where he gets mad if you invite him, but he also gets mad if you don't. Like, you know, your friend's like, no, I don't want to go to your birthday party. Like, that's just dumb. I don't want to. I don't like your friends or anything. And you're just like, okay, then I won't invite you. And they're like, but where's my invitation? I need it so I can reject it.
Yeah. Abby, what were you gonna say?
Yeah, I was gonna say like the exact same thing, just kind of like the validation, I guess, of like his sense of self. Like he doesn't totally know where he stands anymore because he is so into their world, but at the same time he's like an outsider still, because he can like be with Tom's group, or he can like go to Gatsby's party, or he can like just be like in his own little tiny house, but like at the same time he has to feel that validation moving into like a new place. He doesn't really totally know like where he fits in yet, like because of like his monetary, like because of how much money he has, or like he just doesn't feel like he has like the experiences that others have, but at the same time he can relate to them on a lot of levels. And so that's why their like relationships kind of work, I guess.
Yeah, I like that idea, because he does come from wealth, but it is not wealth like Tom Buchanan's. And he is working for his money, but it's not in the way that Gatsby is working, where it's like he's constantly getting phone calls from Philadelphia or Chicago or whatever. He seems to always be in demand. Nick doesn't have that tied to his work. So he's in this in-between space and wants to see where he fits in. I like that a lot. Noah?
I have to bring this up because yesterday I watched Crazy Rich Asians, and it just felt so much like this book, but like at least the setup for it. But I'm thinking about like how, you know, Nick is the main character kind of, and he's like, wow, like he's seeing, you know, like all this money, and he's kind of, Nick is new money, you know, and Gatsby's old money. And it just reminded me of like the main character in the movie. Like she talks about how she had a single mom who, you know, immigrated to America, and she's done pretty well for herself. But then her boyfriend is like basically owns Singapore. So like there's still the sense of like new money, old money. And the whole time I was watching it, I was like, this is, you know, basically the book we're reading right now. But like with Nick, he seems uncomfortable, but I feel like he's just always uncomfortable. I wouldn't describe him as someone that's like, I don't think he thinks he's better than anyone, because that's his biggest problem that he has with these rich people. So where like Lexi said, you know, like he wants an invitation to reject it. I don't think that's necessarily true. I just think he's not like the kind of person that like expects invitations. I think that he was like, he would reject it because he wouldn't know what to do with an invitation, you know, like he's very mild mannered. Like the reason why he makes such a good narrator is he's like, as a person, just objective, you know, like he doesn't have any real opinion on the people he's with. He's just like, he just kind of like describes them to you. Like, you know, with even Tom, he's just like, oh, Tom did this for his life. And so kind of like what Ben said, he's a bystander in someone else's story. It's really interesting because he is the main character, and the book is called Great Gatsby. You know, like we follow Nick, we don't follow Gatsby. We follow Nick because he's the limited, you know, narrator. But like he's set himself up to never be a main character. He's set himself up to, you know, watch Gatsby's life happen, and to he's like, we talked about it last year because I had to read this book, and he had like, it was like, oh, what would you say about Nick? Oh, well, he's the person that you tell stuff to. Like Nick is who you confide in, and that's why Nick doesn't, like, it's like we're talking about, he doesn't voice himself because he doesn't have that person. He just kind of accepts everything. He listens to what Jordan says, what Daisy says, what Nick says. I mean, not Nick, Gatsby, what Gatsby says, and he's just like takes all of it and goes from there. But I just feel like he's very much like a bystander in his own story.
It's really interesting because you also see the way that he cuts himself out of the story too. It's actually a little bit active in the way that he does that. He doesn't just listen to other people. He also kind of goes down this path where he's like, and what was I doing? Oh, you know, things happen and it doesn't really matter all that much. We get that when he's talking about how he's like, I was seeing a girl for a little while and then I wasn't, or I had a dog and then he ran away, or just these like lack of storyline that you're like, hang on, wait a second, like what actually happened there? Like, why didn't things work out with this girl? And yet he doesn't want to fully get into that. And I think part of that makes him seem, I think it makes him seem trustworthy, as you say, Noah, but I also think it simultaneously makes him seem untrustworthy, because in some ways it seems like, oh, then you're just being objective and you're this bystander, so you don't really have a say, or you don't have a like stake in the actual story. But then when he misses stuff, when he doesn't tell us stuff, it's like a little bit suspicious. For example, I'm going to show you one of the famous parts of this. I love that we're doing this via Zoom, so if your parents are in the background, we can see. So on page 37, he is hanging out with this guy, Mr. McKee, in an apartment, right? And they get in the elevator together and they're talking. And he says, come to lunch someday. Mr. McKee invites Nick to lunch. And he's like, where? And he says, anywhere. And then they're just like going down in this elevator, right? And then at the top of 38, we get ... I was standing beside his bed and he was sitting up between the sheets, clad in his underwear with a great portfolio in his hands, showing him his pictures. ... Then I was lying half asleep on the cold lower level of the Pennsylvania station, staring at the Morning Tribune and waiting for the 4 o'clock train. We don't know what happens in the ... right? All we know is that at 1 minute, Nick was at this party with like a whole bunch of people. The next minute, he's with Mr. McKee in his bedroom, clad in his underwear. And then, oh, now he's at the train station. And he leaves all of that out. And it's like, maybe he's drunk. He says he's only been drunk twice in his life. I don't believe that we are seeing someone who's never been drunk before, especially when the next scene we see him get drunk again in chapter 3. So it's like, really, is that the third time you've been drunk then, Nick? Like just one summer of going crazy and then you've never been drunk again? But then also it's like he misses these big moments in his own story. And we're thinking, what is it that you're wanting to leave out in your own story? What are you not wanting to contribute to this that would make us see you in an unflattering way? And okay, it could be that he doesn't remember for sure. But it could be that he blacks out, right? But not speaking from experience, it's pretty rare to forget things, even when you drink a lot. So it could just be convenient that he's leaving things out. Why are we talking about McFlurries? We're talking about the craziest part of this book. Not the craziest part, but the part that a lot of people miss and is very interesting. Okay. Let's move ahead. Also, Cadbury McFlurries are the best. So we talked about all the tangible things that Gatsby owns. Tell me some of the intangible things that Gatsby owns then, because that was part of the prompt, is like ownership can be the orange juice machine and the, access to the chauffeur and people's hearts, respect from others. Exactly. Tell me these intangible things. His status. His story, right, of being an Oxford man, his war experience, his reputation. His relationship with Daisy, his memories. Let me ask this too. What does he own that is like what skills of his own does he seem to own? Like what skills does he have, or what personality characteristics does he have that he owns? His ability to manipulate, his ability to be a chameleon, his charisma. Okay, cool. And his mystery, yeah. Okay, Maxwell said his smile. Let's look at that part. Go to page 48. This smile, man, Nick really likes to see Gatsby smile. It says he smiled understandingly, much more than understandingly. It was one of those rare smiles with a quality of eternal reassurance in it that you may come across 4 or 5 times in life. It faced, or seemed to face, the whole external world for an instant, and then concentrated on you with an irresistible prejudice in your favor. It understood you just as far as you wanted to be understood, believed in you as you would like to believe in yourself, and assured you that it had precisely the impression of you that, at your best, you hoped to convey. Precisely at that point, it vanished, and I was looking at an elegant young roughneck, a year or 2 over 30, whose elaborate formality of speech just missed being absurd. So tell me a little bit about this smile that he owns. What is so powerful about it? You can, again, raise your hand or you can put it in the chat box.
Sorry, what page was that again?
That's page 48.
Thank you.
It's rare. It shows understanding. Yeah, Lexi, that's a little bit what I was getting at with Mr. McKee. Definitely. And it's like, is he, actually in love a little bit with Gatsby? And Allie Rose keeps bringing up the fact that he talks about how good looking Gatsby is. Like, is he a little in love with Gatsby? Or is it just this instant connection that, that people have between each other? It'd be the difference between homosexuality and homosociality, which means that it's like, just like, man, this guy and we just connect. Like, I understand. I know I said it wrong. I understand this guy and he understands me, right? It could be that too. But you see here how it's like the smile understands you as far as you want to be understood, believed in you as you would like to believe in yourself. It's like part of what Gatsby owns is his ability to help other people form their own stories about themselves. So Gatsby's really good about forming his own story, or maybe he's not that good at it because everybody at this party seems to like question what it is, but he seems to be able to build this sort of like persona about himself, and people respect him and people like him, and he's got this charisma, right? But what he also seems to be able to do is with one smile, he can look at somebody and make them believe their own stories, whether or not those stories are true. And we've seen how Nick is trying to like shape that story for himself by leaving things out, or by skipping over things, or by focusing on certain aspects of other people's lives. And Gatsby is there like helping him along. And that's one thing that Nick is really attracted to in Gatsby. Yeah, he validates Nick the way Nick wants to be validated. Exactly. That's the kind of stuff we've been talking about Nick at this party. So here he is watching everybody else, and he's just like, oh, I don't belong here. Like Lexi's idea of him just being sort of like insecure. Oh, what am I even doing at this party? But as soon as Gatsby shows up, he gets that reassurance. And from this point on, he's going to be talking about Gatsby and how he gets this reassurance from Gatsby and how he interacts with Gatsby. Okay, let's stop the discussion there unless somebody else wants to pipe up. Yeah, Nick sort of idolizes him. Absolutely. And part of that is because of who Gatsby is, but also it's what Gatsby can do for Nick in terms of like his own self-conception, right? Okay, so we need to move on so that we can talk a little bit more about your arguments. So you had a thesis statement based on ownership, and we talked a lot about how you could structure that essay. Then we talked about classical argument structure and the Rogerian structure, and I was trying to be clear that you don't have to stick to one of those exactly, but that you can use those structures to kind of play with to get a logical structure to your own paper, right? Once you have that all mapped out and you've got your outline and you've got your thesis, you got to start thinking about how to fill in those ideas. And the AP test and good argument writing wants you to use examples, but you won't have a computer and you won't have books to use for your examples. So all of these examples have to come out of your own head. And the prompt, I'll put it up again. will use this phrase: use appropriate evidence from your reading, experience, or observations to support your argument. And that means that you can write, you can use personal experiences, you can use things that you've read, you can use pop culture or history, like you can use whatever you know about to back up your own ideas. And in some ways that's exciting because like it means that you could write a paper that references Kanye. We had one kid that got a 5 on the AP Lang test. I don't know if it was absolutely because of his argument essay, but he said his argument essay was like half about Kanye and he got a 5 on the test. So that can be really fun to write about that kind of stuff. But it can also be intimidating because at your age, it's kind of like your experience and your observations and your reading is a little bit more limited. And I don't mean that in an insulting way. I just mean like you haven't had as many years on the planet to gather that stuff up, you know? And the one that I find that students have the hardest time with is like current events. And knowing how they can use current events in these essays, because those can be the most powerful things that you talk about. If you can like apply, you know, what's going on with the Epstein case or what's going on with QAnon or what's going on with, I don't know, coronavirus to the prompts, it shows that you're like showing why it could be important in your own life to understand the answer to this argument. So what I am going to have you do now is I'm going to give you 10 minutes on your own. You're going to think about that thesis that you guys came up with as a group. And you're going to try and find current event examples that could work with supporting that thesis statement. So you're online, you're going to be Googling it, you're going to be looking at newspapers, whatever, to try and find some current events that apply to what you guys said as a group in your thesis. And you're going to do this individually first. So I'm going to set the alarm for 10 minutes and you're going to spend that whole 10 minutes researching basically the subject. But again, you're looking for current events. You're not looking for like obscure articles with stats and so on. You're thinking about what is going on right now that helps prove your argument. Does anyone have any questions about that? All right, cool.
Can you just repeat the prompt again? Is it just the first one we were doing with ownership?
It's just the ownership one, yeah.
Okay.
So it's the thesis you wrote in your group that you're trying to support.
Okay.
Okay. All right, go ahead.
We're using that through current events?
Yeah, so you're researching current events that you think could support that argument.
That's okay.
Okay, come on back. Hopefully you've got some good current events that you could potentially use. I mean, I saw the good ones in the chat box, so I know there's at least some good ones going on. Hopefully everyone has a few that they could use. We're gonna do one more thing in your breakout group before we call it quits for today. So I'm gonna send you into your breakout groups. You're gonna be there for, let's do 4 minutes. And you're going to talk about the different examples that you found. As a group, decide which 3 examples you think work the best with your argument. 3 is not, I'm not saying it needs to be a 5-paragraph essay. 3 is just a nice number for this activity. So figure out the 3 that you think applied the best. So I'm going to send you into those breakout rooms again for 4 minutes.
So my internet just crashed again. Are we doing anything else?
Oh, yeah. So I sent you, I'm going to assign you a breakout room. Which one were you in before? Do you remember, were you with Savannah and Cassidy?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to send you into that one, and you're just sharing the examples that you found.
Okay.
Hey, which Bella is this?
It's Bella Siemens.
Okay. We're going to be starting class at 10:40 in 20 minutes. I'm finishing up with AP language right now.
Okay.
Okay.
recorded. Progress.
Okay. All right, so I hope you guys got some good stories and could see how it could be useful. The trick with this style of essay, again, is that you're not using outside sources in the way where you're quoting from these articles. Instead, you're just sort of supposed to have a familiarity with this kind of stuff. So, you know, if it's in your sort of possibilities for time, it might be a good idea to start looking at headlines now and then, watching some, you know, recaps on YouTube about things that have happened in the week, because on the test, they do just sort of expect you to kind of have this knowledge of what's going on in the world and be able to relate that to your essays and your prompts. That being said, there's lots of different kinds of examples you can use: history, pop culture, fictional characters, you know, books that you've read, your own experience, etc. We were just focusing on current events today. So your assignment for next week, so not Friday, but next Tuesday, is to write your first argument essay. Oh, it's so nice on Zoom. I can't hear everybody groan. This is amazing. Let's always do Zoom. So on Canvas, you'll see the assignment. You can choose to write the artifice essay or this ownership essay. So I'm not making you go into it cold. You can use all of the groan in the chat. Okay, good. You can use all of the like work that you've already done, and you're just writing one of those. So either the artifice essay or the ownership essay. And I know that this is your first one that you are writing for me, so you are just doing your best. This isn't the first argument you've written, because you've been practicing these since elementary school. It's been part of the core, you know? So just do your very best with it. We'll see how it goes. I'll give you all the feedback, let you do rewrites and so on. On Friday, you're going to check in with me at our usual time. I'm going to say, great, you're here. That's awesome. Go work on your essays. So you'll have Friday, at least the hour for this class, as a work day. And then it's not due until the next Tuesday, though. Okay, does anybody have any questions about that before I let you go? Not quotes, great question. No, because it's kind of like this idea that you're not doing other research, you're sort of pulling from your own experience and your own ideas. So you don't need to use quotes for that. Yeah. Any other questions? Kind of pretend that you're having an argument like with a family member and you don't have your phone with you. So you just have to like pull out what you know to make this argument. Yes, you can use personal experience. Lunches with Zoom, we're on our exact same schedule. So if you have first lunch, it's lunch now. And if you have second lunch, you're going to your third period class. Or I guess it's seventh period class. Yeah. And if you want to stick, I'm going to let everyone go, but if you want to stick around because you're not sure what lunch you have because of the new semester, I've got the list so I can help you out. All right, then stick around if you have questions, but you are good to go. Thank you so much for all your participation. And see you in person next week. I'm just going to put it in the universe. Zoe, I do have the rubric out there. Yeah. Yes, Jane, you can use I. Yeah. It's kind of like a college essay a little bit. Like it can be about your personal experience. You don't want to only focus on your personal experience, but you can definitely use it. All right, Lexi, you have a question for me?
Yeah, sorry, you said stick around for lunch questions.
Yeah, okay.
I think I have the same lunch, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, what is your third period or your seventh period class?
That's the thing. It changed.
Do you know the last name?
Yes. It's the peer tutor teacher.
Oh, who does that? I'm not sure.
It starts with an S, I know that.
Okay, let me look. I have the master schedule too, so I can see.
Okay, sorry, I'm pulling up.
Yeah, you pull it up on Skyward, and we'll see who gets there first.
Is Skyward not working today?
It should be. Who knows, though, honestly. What department is peer tutoring in?
Skyward is not working for me on my cell phone, so I'm just going to try.
Okay.
Going over to Google.
Okay, let's see. I'm looking as well.
Yeah, I have Skyward tabbed, but it's saying doesn't exist. So.
Okay, let me see if I can open Skyward because I can see your schedule too.
All right, I'm sorry, I'm not sure.
You are totally fine. We've got a few minutes before class starts, so you are good. Yeah, I'm good. I wonder why yours isn't working.
I don't know.
All right.
Oh, well, there it goes. Let's see if I can log in. Okay, well, now it's working. Weird.
That's always the way it is, huh?
I can't pronounce that. Sarmiento.
Sarmiento has first lunch.
Okay, so I go now.
So you go to lunch now, and then you will go in 45 minutes. You'll go to her class.
Okay, cool.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
See ya.
Bye.